Hi, everybody. Diane Nalini here. Welcome to this workshop on the song At Last. And I'm just checking to make sure that everything's working properly. So do let me know in the chat if you can hear and see me all right. That would be great. And for those of you that are watching this in replay, I've got a timer up there. I don't know if the timer is working properly. I'm just going to check to make sure that the timer is showing the right time to start. No, it's not. Aha. Okay, I'm going to change the countdown time so that it shows the correct time to start. So you should be able to see that we're going to be starting the actual workshop in about 15 minutes. And this is just a welcome Q&A for anybody to check in and just say hello in the chat. So please do say hello. Let us know where you're joining from. If you still want to, this workshop is free to watch, of course, and I am going to be putting the basic chord charts and the basic stuff that we're working on today on the screen. But if you'd like to purchase the workshop materials, you can go to the link that's in the description of this video. And I've also put the link on screen here over here. And I'm just going to move over so that I'm sort of more centered compared to that banner that's on screen so that you can see. It's really nice to see so many of you tuned in. Just a few things about how everything works in YouTube. You probably know this already, but if at any point you find that your video is out of sync or the audio seems a little bit out of sync, it could be bandwidth issues on your end, and so you can refresh your window. And also hit live down in the bottom of the description, hit live, and that'll take you to wherever we are in the stream. If you're watching this in replay, you can fast forward to the time when the countdown goes to 0, and that's going to be the start of the workshop. So just to make that a little bit easier for all of you. Wow, it's great to see so many of you in the chat. This is wonderful. We've got folks joining. Oh, I see we've got Gail. Really nice to see you, Gail. Thanks for being with us. That's great. Thank you for letting me know that the sound and the audio are good. I really appreciate that. Hello, Carol. Great to see you too. CA Canadian Songbird? I think that's what your username means. I love that. Canadian Songbird. Awesome. Ooh, from Germany. Hello, Valencia. That's wonderful. Thank you for joining us. This is lovely. I'm so glad that so many of you can watch from different time zones. We had a little bit of I was grateful to Alistair Fraser from the UK who reminded us that the UK, Canada, our clocks are going back tomorrow. But I think Europe and the UK have already gone back last weekend. So we're in this short period where the time difference to the UK, which is normally 5 hours for us here in Ottawa, is actually only 4 hours. And for Europe, it's only 5 hours. So I'm glad that those of you in Europe were able to join us and that you figured out the time differences. That's awesome. And Carol's in Pittsburgh. Hermine is in Germany. Lovely. Nice of you to join us, Hermine. That's wonderful. Hi, Adrian. My husband, Adrian, is watching from from next door in the living room. He really, my husband's a really fantastic live producer. In addition to being a wonderful bassist who often plays with me in jazz concerts, he's also started this wonderful new platform called Sync Space Live, where musicians can play live across the internet together from different cities. And so I'll tell you a little bit about the concert that he's going to be hosting tonight. He's doing a show. It's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and they're focusing on repertoire by Dave Brubeck and Paul Desmond, and it's going to be a quartet, and I'll tell you a little more about that in a moment. But let me just check in on who's with us here, and forgive me if I'm missing anyone. I'm trying to catch all the folks. Hi, Marlis, great to have you with us. Roger and Patrick from the UK, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. Clifford's in San Francisco, woohoo! I wish I could do a real-time map there is a way to do it, but it's super complicated, and I don't have the coding skills to figure it out. But there's a way to drop pins in a map to tell where everybody's in. But I'm just going to call it out here. Gail's in Kansas City. We've got Cecilia in Delaware. Hi, Cecilia. Great to see you. Cecilia and Gail, I know you guys have come to some of our Sync Space concerts. We really appreciate that. That's awesome. Errol is in BC. We've got a great contingent from British Columbia. Awesome. Yeah. And from California. That's awesome. Oh, Amy is in... Oh, I was wrong. Amy is not a Canadian songbird. She's a Californian songbird. But that's just as awesome. Ooh, Daniele Machado is from Rio de Janeiro. Wow, bon dia. Bon dia, Daniele. That's awesome. Really great to have you with us. Muito obrigada. And Patricia is here from Saskatoon. Hi, Patsy. Great to have you with us. Shirley in Penticton. Oh, BC contingent is really strong. And Catherine, Virginia. Catherine, thanks for being with us. Another Sync Space supporter who often attends concerts on Sync Space. That's really awesome. And Gail's in Washington. This is great. I just love seeing where everybody's joining from. Eric is in the UK. Hi, Eric. Thanks for being with us. And Marlene. Hello, Marlene. Lovely to have you with us. Well, I'm glad it sounds as though everybody is able to hear and see me okay. It's super dry here in Ottawa because we winter heating has kicked in our apartment building. And so I'm getting, even though I don't have the heat on, we're getting everybody else's heat. And my throat's really dry. So I'm just going to grab a quick cup of tea. I have backup tea ready for me for later because I know I'm going to use it all. And if I don't use my tea or water, I get really parched. Oh, Aline is with us from Brazil. That's so awesome. That's great. And oh, Pat's with us from St. Paul, Minnesota. Hi, Pat. Thanks for joining us. This is great. I'm using... Oh, I see. Ah, Marion. Bonjour, Marion. Grand plaisir de te voir parmi nous. Merci d'être avec nous. Marion is from Montreal, my hometown. Yay! And Aline is with us from Brazil. Thank you so much. We have such a lovely international group. People in Germany, in the UK, in Brazil, in the US, and Canada. This is really wonderful. In case you're wondering for this workshop, by the way, today, you can use high G or low G ukulele. It doesn't matter. I tried to ensure that I'm just going to check all the tabbing, but I'm fairly certain that I did the tabbing to avoid the G string entirely. Let me just double check that. Yes. So all the transcriptions that I've done and the tabbing, it doesn't matter what you're using. I will mostly be demonstrating on low G ukulele, but if anybody wants me to, I'll be very happy to switch to my high G. And it really doesn't matter. It's all going to be good. In case you guys are wondering about where to get the materials, if you're interested. Oh, Nick St. Clair, so great to see you. Hi, Nick. Wow. A blast from the past. Nick and I knew each other. Gosh, is it already 20 years? 20 years ago in the UK, and we played in a salsa band together that Nick started. It was called Salsa Diction, and I used to sing in the band and sometimes play percussion, and Nick played saxophone, and we had a blast playing for lots of dancing audiences. I miss those days, Nick. When it's funny because I'm a jazz singer. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a jazz singer and songwriter, and so I mostly play jazz concerts. And but singing with a salsa band was so much fun because I love salsa music. I love the Spanish language, and so that was joyful. But singing for a dancing audience, making people dance with your music is so awesome. Just to see that physical joy manifested in people, that was just the best. So thanks for being with us, Nick. Awesome to see you. Are you joining us from the UK right now? I know Nick has lived all over the world, so I'm never quite sure. But great to see you. And Holly, thank you for joining us. So we're going to be diving into one of my absolute favorite songs, and I will talk a little bit more about the actual history of the song when we start the formal workshop. But It is a song that I used to keep myself company with. When I was a student, I was often working late hours in a physics lab. And sometimes I was all alone down in the basement, toiling away. And I would sing songs to myself to keep myself company. And I had a number of Etta James albums, but the one that I remember the most and the one that I took with me to Australia when I was a student, and I lived there for a few months, was a sort of a greatest hits album. It was called The Sweetest Peaches. And it had this song At Last, and also the song Fool That I Am, which is another great ballad that Etta James recorded. And I would sing these songs just a cappella to myself down in the basement to keep myself company. She also recorded a song called In the Basement, which is great. But anyway, I've loved this song for many, many years, so it's a real joy for me to be able to share it with you because it has a really personal meaning to me. Oh, Ma Rose is in Belgium. That's wonderful. Thank you for being with us. This is lovely. My father was born in Belgium. My father was born in Brussels, but his side of the family is from Liège. So I have a big place in my heart for Belgium. And for India. My mother is from a part of India that used to be a part of Portugal called Goa. And so I have lots of family still in India, but also in Portugal and Brazil and Cabo Verde and a whole kind of part of the Lusophonic world. So that's really great. We have a lovely international audience. Yeah, so I see Adrian is telling a little bit more about Sync Space. I'm just going to put the link to it in the chat so you guys know how to get there. HTTPS syncspace.live. So that's the link to SyncSpace, and that's the platform that my husband Adrian started about a year ago. And it allows musicians to play together live across the internet at very low latency. And I was mentioning it a little bit earlier. I just did a concert of bossa nova music on it a week or two ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I got to bring out my ukulele for about half of the songs on that. It was wonderful. And we had musicians. I was playing with a legend of the Canadian saxophone called Bob Bruff. He was in Toronto. Drummer in Toronto, Anthony McKelly. Bassist, Dan Fortin, was in Hamilton, Ontario. And I'm here in Ottawa. And we were all able to play as if we were in the same room, really, just listening to each other through headphones. And so tonight they're doing a concert of the music of Dave Brubeck as recorded with Paul Desmond. That was a very well-known jazz ensemble with Brubeck and Desmond. And there's going to be a pianist, Mark Ferguson, who's also a great trombonist that I've worked with many times. He's playing the part of Dave Brubeck. And then Colleen Allen, a saxophonist in Toronto, who will be doing the Paul Desmond parts on saxophone. So that'll be a really lovely concert, and I will be there. So if you're interested, head over to SyncSpace and check it out. Hi, Char. Great to see you. I realize I say, in my head, I read your name and I say Char because I think CH is Char, but then I realize I think it might be Char for Charlotte. So I apologize if I have been mispronouncing your name in my head, but it's great to have you with us. All right, so I think we are nearly to the point of, I'm just going to see if we have a few more minutes, just making sure. Yeah, we have a couple more minutes. So welcome everybody. In case you've just joined, we are about to start the workshop on At Last. We're starting at 2:15, so in just a couple of minutes. And I know many of you have already bought the workshop materials for this workshop. It's a totally free workshop, and I will be putting up the main chord diagrams on the screen for today, so you can just follow along with that. If you wish to purchase the handouts, there are two packages. There's one called the Basic Materials, and that is going to include everything that I'm showing on screen today, as well as a little bit of the history of this song and some links, some listening links to some key recordings that I recommend you listen to for this song, including the original, the hit-making version of it that Glenn Miller recorded, and then the one that pushed it to the stratosphere, which is the Etta James version, and then a subsequent number of recordings by a lot of great singers like Beyonce, Celine Dion, Christina Aguilera, and a really interesting recording by Etta James that she recorded just a few years ago, just the last decade, in the years just before she passed away in the early 2010s. And so she was recording the song 50 years later with a live orchestra, sounding absolutely fantastic, which is just amazing. And that's the basic package. And then there's also a comprehensive package that includes a bunch of listening exercises that I've put together to help guide people who are interested in diving deeper, not just into this song, but into a method of doing extremely focused and intense listening exercises to tune your ear to different aspects of an arrangement, different aspects of the harmony of a song from the rhythm. So listening at the drums level, the bass level, piano level, really kind of systematically going through to track what's going on in a recording, to better understand what you're hearing, and also to learn to apply that to your instrument. There are also 6 backing tracks because I provide a bonus key. I know not everybody wants to sing it in the same key as Etta James. We're doing it today in the same key that she recorded it in, which is the key of F. But I also provide an alternate key of C. And then I do backing tracks in the key of F and the key of C. There's a learning tempo in each of those keys at 50 beats per minute. There's a recording of a backing track that matches that of the Etta James recording, which is 60 beats per minute. And then there's also, so those are done with a jazz quartet backing, a little sort of discrete swing backing. And then there's a doo-wop version, which really dives into that 12/8 feel that you get on the recording. So that's the comprehensive package. So you have that choice, and you can also, it'll be available after the workshop. So if you don't feel you have to rush over there right now to get it, because it'll be available afterwards as well. And I'm going to just take, so since we're starting, I'm just going to take all this off since we're officially started now for this workshop. This workshop is going to be available for replay. It should be available at this very link that you're at. If for any reason the link has to change afterwards, I will send out a replay link to everyone that's on my mailing list. So if you're not already on the Ukulele for Jazz Singers mailing list, please join. It's just go to ukuleleforjazzsingers.com and sign on to the newsletter, and that way you'll get any updates and notifications. All right, so let me just grab my uke here. And I'm just tracking here to make sure I'm not missing anything. Hi, Susan. Great to see you. For those of you that have come to my Zoom workshops before, you'll know I'm trying. This is a little bit different for me. I'm trying to do this on YouTube just because I know sometimes the replays for Zoom are very low resolution, and that's something that Zoom controls that I have no control over. So the idea of doing this on YouTube is to make it accessible to more people, but also the quality of the graphics is going to be better, and you're going to be able to see things on screen a lot better. So I hope you enjoy it. It's an experiment for me. It's my first time doing this all on my own. Last time I had Adrian helping me, so I'm keeping fingers crossed that it's all going to go okay. All right, so we're going to be using this handout. So for those of you that are wondering, if you bought the comprehensive package or the other package, there are different colors for each handout, and this is the one we're dealing with today. And I'm just going to move my camera over a little bit. There we go. So that I'm a little bit more centered. I hope that was the right direction. Nope. It was the wrong direction, I think. No, sorry. I'm just trying to master my camera a little bit here. Okay. I think I just have to move. There we are. Am I moving in the wrong direction? At last. No pun intended. Okay. So that's what this handout looks like for the first half of for the workshop that we're running through today. And Shara is saying the listening exercises were really interesting to learn. Thanks for doing it in C. Oh, that's great. Awesome. Thanks, Shar. Shar is saying that she's finding the backing tracks really useful. That's great. All right. So we're going to go now to we're going to be looking at the song structure, and this is what the page 1 of the handout looks like. And what I've put together here is just the chords that you hear on the Etta James recording. And before we dive into any kind of analysis, I'm just going to play through the song once, and feel free to bring out your ukes if you want to play with me. I'm just going to strum very simply. On the recording, this has a sort of a swing groove, but you will hear the piano playing in the background going da 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 da, and that's that 12/8 groove superposed on a sort of more swinging 2 feel that the bass line is playing. So we have the chord, we start in F. At last, my love has come along. So let me talk you through that. So I'm playing F, and I'm just going to count it in 4 right now. I'm not going to count in 12/8, okay? So F for 2 beats, and I'll talk through what my hand positions are really quickly, just so you get that, because these chords repeat over the A section several times. So we've got F, 2 open, 1 open. We've got D minor, I just joined my ring finger in there, 2, 2, 1 open. Then we move into the G minor triad, which is open 2, 3, 1. And C7, which is open, open, open 1. And we're just going to cycle through those chords several times for the first 6 bars of the tune. So we go at last, F, D minor, my love has come along, my lonely days are over, and life is like, and now, here we go. I'm just pausing here because we've got something different on the chart now. For the first time, we're actually going to play a slightly different chord sequence, and I'll explain what this is when we come to doing the sort of the jazz harmonic analysis. But for the time being, let's just make note that we're going to play F as we did at the beginning of all the previous sequences. But now we're going to move to D7, and I'm actually going to, you can play this D7 in many different ways, but I find it convenient to do it this way. I've got my middle finger and my index finger that are fretting the F. 2 open, 1 open. And so to sort of drop into that D7, it's very convenient to just keep my middle finger where it is, drop into a bar, and use my ring finger there to play that D7. And then slide that whole bar back, D flat 7, C7. But if you're more comfortable making your bars with your index, of course you can do that too. D7, D flat 7, C7. That takes us to the end of the first A section, and then we're going to turn it around and go back. That turns us back to the second A, because we've got a repeat at the end here, and so we're going to go back to the beginning. Holly is asking, do you recommend low G? Holly, I recommend that you play whatever you prefer. I'm using low G just because this is my favorite uke, but I can also demonstrate this a little bit later on high G. It doesn't matter to me which one you use. I kind of like it. I'm going to get to a point a little bit later when I'm going to be arpeggiating, and I'll be doing. I kind of like the sound of that arpeggiation on the low G a little bit more, but there are ways of making it sound great on high G, and sometimes it'll just involve choosing a different set of strings to do your arpeggiations on. So up to you what you prefer to use. All right. So we've played the first A, we're now going to do our second A, and we're going to do second set of lyrics as well. So we go back, second A is at last. The skies above are blue, was wrapped up in clover. And here we come to the second ending. The night I looked at you. And this is a really cool second ending. It goes F for 2 beats, B flat minor 6, back to F. That's a very classic kind of doo-wop sound, right? So let me just show you, cut to my hands here for a second. So we go F, 2, open, 1, open. Then I'm just using my index finger to partially bar here, leaving the G string open, and then barring everything else at the first fret. And then back to F. Very pretty way of getting us into the bridge of the song, which is the B section of the song. So for the B section of the song, and by the way, for those of you that are familiar with a little bit of jazz theory, you will probably hear that I've been playing what's called a 1-6-2-5, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But it goes basically 1, 6, 2, 5, F, D, G, C, and that recurs, and it is related to what's called the doo-wop progression, and very similar. So that's why it's so familiar. It's so ingrained in our brains, and very familiar to those of you who love jazz. You'll have heard this in I Got Rhythm. You'll have heard it in Cheek to Cheek and Blue Moon and a whole bunch of other tunes as well. We get to the bridge now. We're going to go to the B section. So remember, we just had this ending, second ending, which was F, B flat, minor 6, which sounds so sentimental, and F. All right, and now we start in the B section and we go to G minor 7. Just G minor here, because we'll come to 7 chords in a bit. G minor, I found a dream, C7, that I could speak to, and we sit on F for a whole bar. And here comes a very interesting momentary sequence that goes E7, and I'll just show you what I'm doing as I cut to my hands here, because I'm going to recommend that we play the E7 with our middle finger here. You may be accustomed to playing E7 with your index finger. If you've seen it this way, 1, 2, open, and ring finger, that totally works for an E7, right? However, where have we just come from? This is bar 3 of the B section. We've just come from an F that we held this way. Our middle finger's already on the right string. We're just going to slide it back, okay? And we're going to put our ring finger down at the 2nd fret on the C string, open E string, pinkies down at the 2nd fret on the A string. And we're going to play our E7 that way. Why? Because it allows us to slide effortlessly, momentarily into this F7 chord, which is our very next chord. So E7 and F7, of course, they're only different by 1 fret because they're a semitone apart. And look how easy that is. If I fret my E7 this way, I can effortlessly slide in to my F7, which is 2, 3, 1, 3. And then I need to go back to my E7. And then make note of that your middle finger is just already poised to play the very next chord, which is A minor. Everything else is going to lift, and my middle finger is going to slide forward to 2, open, 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 and that's my A minor. So let's just practice that sequence, the first 4 bars of the B section together. We're going to do I, and feel free, by the way, I will sing it, but if you're concentrating on learning your fingering, don't sing for the time being. Just follow along on your uke and play the chords, and you can always sing later. 1, 2, 3, I've found a dream, C7, that I could speak to. I'm playing F. E7, a dream that I could call my own. Let's do that one more time and just practice again. We're just going to break down. I'm going to go, instead of playing the G minor 7, C7, let's just go from F, from speak to, just to practice getting into that E7. That I could speak to. Here comes the E7. A dream that I could call my own. Yes, Green Eggs and Ham is asking, are you plucking the strings? Yes, I am. Let me show you that. So I am indeed plucking the strings. I have got and maybe I will just take page 1 off of here so that you can see me very clearly, and I will lower my camera a little bit so you can see more of my right hand. I am plucking this way. I've got my thumb over my G string. My my index finger is under my C string, middle finger under the E string, and ring finger under the A string. And I'm plucking like this. You don't have to pluck. If you prefer to, you can strum. So it would sound like this. A dream that I could call my own. I like to pluck for 2 reasons. One, it allows me to have more control, especially if I'm playing open strings. I can mute with my left hand, or I can mute with my right hand as the hand comes back down over the strings. The other reason I like to pluck is that if I want to, in a few moments, I'm going to be talking about how we can evoke the 12/8 feel, the doo-wop sound for this tune, and we're going to do that by arpeggiating. And so having our fingers poised over the strings and ready to take action is really helpful, because then we can go, like that. So that's why I find it super helpful to have my right hand ready for action over the strings like that. Thank you for asking that question. That was great. All right, so we were here and we just practiced the first 4 bars of the bridge, the B section. And let me put that back on the screen. So we did a dream, I found a dream that I could speak to. Here comes that E7. A dream that I could call my own. And now we go back to D minor. I found a thrill. And here is G7. We haven't had a G7 in this song yet. So that's our first hint that we have just momentarily shifted into a different key. Now you don't see that there's no sign of the key signature changing or anything on this chart. I've still got that 1 flat in there. We're still calling this whole thing in the key of F. But what this is, we'll come to this in a little bit, but just for those of you who are already tweaking to this, this is actually going to be 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1 in the key of C. Don't worry if you don't know what that means. I'm going to do this at the end when we talk about the jazz version of this tune. I'll break this all down. So we've got I found a thrill, D minor, G7, open 2, 1, 2, to press my cheek to. And now this is super easy, right? In terms of what my left hand is doing. I was here at D minor, which we already played earlier, 2, 2, 1 open, G7. My index is staying exactly where it was, and it's acting as a pivot point as I rotate these other fingers to position into open 2, 1, 2. Now I lift these 2 fingers and I reveal my ring finger's already in the right place to play C major 7, open, open, open 2. And I go to my C sharp diminished 7 chord, which involves actually, I'm sliding my ring finger back 1 fret and putting my middle finger down here at the 1st fret. So it's open 1, open 1. And that's my C sharp diminished chord. Back to D minor, like the sequence we just heard, D minor to G7. Now this G7 is now going to become a G minor and it's C7. And that's our bridge. We've now finished pretty much, we've now covered all of the chords in this song, because the last A section is just going to be almost an exact repeat of what we played in the second A, including that ending. So let's play this for the last A now, just so we can say we've gone through the song once. You smile, and then the spell was cast, and here we are in heaven. And now here comes that D7, D flat 7, and you'll notice there's a fermata there, which looks like a bird's eye. It's like a dot with an eyebrow over it. That means we're going to pause for effect, for drama. And that gives our voice a chance to play this little cadenza, for you are mine, C7, and then here comes our ending. I'm not going to play the full ending that you hear on the recording with the strings just yet. I'll break that down separately. So for now, let's just end the tune with F, B flat minor 6. All right. So what I've done there is I've put this ending, the second ending that you saw in the second A of the tune before the bridge, we're using that to actually end the song as well. It's interesting. It's a satisfying ending to take us into the bridge, to the B section, but it's also a satisfying ending in and of itself, which is kind of unusual. Normally, the harmony that leads your ear to the B section is taking you somewhere else. So it's kind of neat that it serves two purposes here, I think. That's why I think it's great to have it in there, because if you're jamming with people and they don't necessarily know the ending to the Etta James recording, this is a neat way of ending the tune, just not necessarily playing that extended string violin ending. All right, and don't hesitate if you guys have any questions, for sure, just put it in the chat, and I am monitoring the chat. And so let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to answer. So I just wanted us to do a bit of a mapping of the harmony of the tune so that we understood the structure of the tune. As I mentioned before, this is an A-A-B-A tune where the A sections have very similar harmony, and we're hearing a lot of this 1-6-2-5. And then the bridge takes us to different places harmonically. You'll notice the chords look very different. We're seeing chords we haven't seen in the A section when we look at the bridge. And then we come back to this very familiar place, which is the last A section, and it's going to tie it all up in a bow for us. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Green Eggs and Ham. I'm so glad that you are enjoying. Thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate that, especially because I can't see you guys, so the chat is my way of seeing you and enjoying interacting with you. Okay, so I want to now talk a little bit about the chords a little bit more, and in particular I want us to think about how we can use our ukulele as a bass. I know this sounds like a strange idea because the ukulele is a really trebly sounding instrument, and you would probably the last instrument on the planet that you would think of as using as a bass. But we're going to kind of suspend our disbelief for the time being. We're going to accept that whatever notes we're playing are going to be, octaves higher than what a true bass would play on an electric bass, or even a double bass, which can go an octave lower. And that's okay. We're going to just worry about the pitches. We're not going to care about whether these notes sound like bassy. That's okay. I just want us to get used to hearing the bass tones, because one of the things that I find is that, when we play the ukulele, it's easy, I think, because most of the time we don't have bass notes on the ukulele. A guitar, it has lower notes, E, A, D, G, B, E, right? So you have those low notes, the two bottom strings on the guitar. The guitarist can often play the bass note on the lowest strings and then play it in the upper voicings to fill out the chord. And so when guitarists are playing on their own and there's no bassist, they can use those two lowest strings to play the bass notes. When there is a bassist, they try to avoid playing bass notes because they don't want to step on the toes of the bassist in the band. But they have that option of playing the bass. So it's sort of like a self-contained instrument that can provide both the root of the harmony and all the upper voicings. We can't do that, but we can fake it. And I'm going to show you how we're going to fake it for today. Okay, so we're going to be finding the roots in all of these chords that are already under our fingers, and we're just going to emphasize them. So in the first instance, I want us to look at the just the A section right now, and we're going to look at literally this 1-6-2-5 harmony that I was talking about before. And let me just find it. I'm going to see if I can share this with you in a higher magnification so we can all focus a little bit more on this. Let me just see if this is going to work, okay? So I'm going to take this off the screen. And there we go. I think that is going to be better. All right. We're going to be focusing on this pattern, okay? And we're going to be playing just the roots of these chords. And I want to show you on this handout where the roots are so that you can realize that you don't actually need to play any different notes than what you're already going to be playing when you play these chords. So here we go. My F on my ukulele is this. Oop, that's a big fat. Sorry about that. I didn't mean that to be quite so big. Here is my F. Okay, so the root is on my E string. That's my root. All right, and when I play D minor, my root is right there on my C string at the 2nd fret, and that's my root. When I play G minor triad, I actually have 2 choices. These notes are going to be the same when you're playing high G uke, and they're going to be an octave apart when you're playing the low G uke, but you have 2 roots. So I'm going to highlight them here. Roots. All right, and here, open string is my C string. What could be simpler? You're just playing the C root, okay? Whoops, sorry about that. So that is, let me just make sure that's not hidden to all of you. Those are the notes that we want to be picking out as we play this progression, as we pretend to be bassists. This exercise of picking out the bass notes becomes all the more important when we start to play jazz voicings, and you're going to start to realize that depending on which voicing of the F chord I choose to play, if I play an F6 chord, for example, it's going to look identical to a D minor 7 chord. It's going to look and sound identical depending if I play the same in certain inversions. They are identical. So then the question becomes, how do you know that these are different chords when the notes are all the same? Well, you need to understand what's happening in the bass. And even if there is no bassist, but if you're the only one playing, you still need to be hearing those notes in your head to help guide you to understand what role each of these combinations of notes is playing at a given moment in time. Okay? So, oh, hi, Rob. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. John, oh, I'm glad you're finding it cool. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit more now, and I'm going to erase what I just wrote there because I didn't mean to create such a mess. I just really wanted to highlight what the roots are. I will leave the circled roots in there so that everybody can hear them and play them. So let's just play that together. You can either fret the whole chord if you want, but I only want you to pluck the given string. So when you're playing F, we're going to just be plucking the E string, and that's going to give us our F note. When you're playing the D minor chord, you're going to be plucking your C string, and that's going to give you D as a root. When you're playing G minor, it's your choice. You can either play the E string or the open G string. And on a low G, that's going to be an octave lower. It doesn't matter. Play either one. And then when you play C7, play your C string. Okay, let's just cycle around a few times with that, and just to hear how it sounds. And it's going to get us a lot of the song. It gets us like 80% of this song just playing that. So let's sing just against these roots. So we're going to do let me just give you the starting count because we're going to do it all together. 1, 2, 3. At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song. Now, when we come to that first ending, you know that there's actually something different going on, right? There's something different going on because we're playing this first ending, which has, I'll give you a little bit of a cheat here and just tell you what that is. You're witnessing in there a tritone substitution for what would have been if it had been F, D, G, C. We're playing a D flat instead, but don't worry if you don't know what that means. I'll talk about it later, but for the time being, let's just identify our roots here. So, oops, we're going to have F here is our root. On the barred D7 chord, our root is here. Once again, it's the note D on the C string. It slides back 1 fret when we play it as a D flat 7, and back 1 more fret to an open string when we play it as a C7. All right. And then let me just also look at the next batch of notes so that we can play this through for the next ending. Again, F root is on the E string, 1st fret. The B flat minor 6, your root is actually on the A string at the 1st fret. You go 1 fret up from A and you get a B flat, right? So that's our root here. And once again, F back here. Okay, so now let's play this to the second ending. And you'll notice I didn't circle the roots for everything in here because you guys you've got this. You've already heard what I hope you're hearing, which is that there's just a series of repeating patterns. F, D, G, C, like that. And it just repeats that way for the whole of the first 6 bars of this song. So let's now play, again, we're going to play just the first ending. Let me just go that first ending really quickly so that we do it all together. And we're going to play it F. We're going to play F. And then I'm going to fret D7 and play the note that's on my C string. Then slide back to D flat 7. Play the note that's under there, again, C string. Slide back, C. Now, you may ask yourself, why is she making me fret the whole chord if all I'm playing is the bass note? When you're first figuring out a tune, any tune, especially if you don't have any sheet music for it, I highly recommend that you start off. You don't need to go out and rush and try to find the sheet music. If you can find a good recording of it where the bass is coming out clearly, sit down and write down all the notes that you hear the bassist playing. Most of the time on the strong beats, they're going to be playing the roots. In between that, they're either going to be playing probably fifths or interesting walking lines that get you to your next root in an interesting way. That's the art of that's what bassists do. That's their art, is to navigate the harmony of the tune and play interesting lines and not just play roots like robots. Okay, but we don't need to worry about that. We don't need to try to get all like fancy pants and play like, chromatic approach notes and all that. No, we just need to figure out the roots and anchor ourselves in the harmony. So figure out what you're hearing on the strong beats 1 and 3 normally of the bar. If it's a tune where the harmony is changing faster, sometimes the harmony will change like every beat, then of course you're going to need to listen more carefully and write down every beat, every note that you hear. But this is going to be so good for your ear and such a good exercise and such a good way of relating to the harmony of the tune. So we just played, going back to what I was saying about why I'm asking you to fret the whole string, the whole chord, is that eventually I'm going to be asking us to not just play roots. At last, my love. That sounds nice, but of course that's not yet an accompaniment. That's just the roots. But what we can do is play the root, start with the root, and then arpeggiate the rest. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we let the note ring for 5 and 6. That's for my F chord. Now I'm going to play D minor. I'm just going to put my ring finger down. And again, I'm going to start on the root, which means remembering that I need to pluck the C string here to get the root. So F, pluck, pluck, pluck. Then play D minor. D, pluck, pluck, pluck. I'm not naming all the other notes because I want to focus on the roots. Then I'm going to position my finger into the G minor shape and play G, which again is on my E string. G, pluck, sort of G, pluck, pluck, pluck. And in this case, I'm omitting to play that low G string. Or I can pluck the low G string and go G, 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 pluck, pluck, pluck. G, G, pluck, pluck, pluck. And then I'm going to open to C7 and play the C string. C, and then I'm going to go back to G, pluck, pluck, pluck. Now, if you do that, C, pluck, 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 you're actually just playing a C triad. You're not getting at the C7 quality of the chord because you've skipped the B flat. You haven't played that top note. And that's where the flatted seventh of your C7 chord is. That's what makes this chord a C7 chord and not a C6 chord or a C major 7. So to get around that, you can go C, pluck, pluck, and pluck the two top strings. There's all sorts of ways you can do this. But basically what I'm doing as I arpeggiate these chords is I'm trying to evoke the 12/8 feel, the doo-woppiness of this song. Without going full out like the piano, who's basically playing in 12/8, playing every single eighth note. So the piano on this recording is going basically... And that's basically playing 6 eighth notes for each chord. That's a lot. And I think it sounds really pretty when the piano plays it with lots of reverb and the mix, and it's low in the mix. It's not punching you in the face, and it's just evoking that da, 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 da. And the drums, of course, are also going to be hitting like an echo of that rhythm, and it's all going to work well together. But on the ukulele, I think it's excessive. So we can evoke that 12/8 feel by playing 1, 2, 3, 4, rest, rest. And it's not resting. It's like we're letting the last note ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, ring, ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, ring, ring. And that's going to give you that doo-wop feel without kind of suffocating you by playing too much, kind of too many eighth notes all in a row. So it's going to sound like this. Notice for the last time there for the C7, optionally, because I want it to sound like a dominant chord, I'm actually plucking those top two strings at the same time just so I get that B flat in there. But you don't have to. You could just go and omit that B flat. It'll just make it a C triad. That works too. It's not a big deal. But that's going to give us that doo-woppiness to it. And so if I play the song this way now and sing it while arpeggiating, it's going to sound like this. At last, my love has come along. My lonely nights are over, and life is like a song. Now notice I'm trying not to be too robotic about it. Like, you can break this up. You don't have to play like a little metronome the whole time because it'll get a little bit boring to the listener if you're always playing the exact same pattern. So I'm just giving you ideas. But I basically, when I played that D7 again, I was plucking the D and I was plucking the top two strings and sliding that pattern back to play D flat 7. And I just played a variation to indicate, like, by breaking up the rhythm at the very end, that's one way of indicating that we've come to the end of an A section. So we're doing something that's rhythmically different from what we've had in our comping up to this point. In the same way that a drummer, when they come to the end of a section, they'll often they'll indicate that rhythmically. So they might be playing ta 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 ta, and then when they come to the end of the section, it might go ta 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 ta, something like that, like a crescendo combined with more emphasis, combined with a little roll or something to indicate this section of the song has finished. And I'm telling the audience that we're marking the end of this important song ending, because when you think of rhythm, like comping is not just about playing the right chord at the right time. It's also about the rhythm that you execute while you're playing those chords and the way that you help your listener to evoke the structure of the song. So I mentioned before, this song is an AABA form. It has 8-bar sections in it. And at the end of each 8-bar section, we want to do something to emphasize and tell our listener, hey, this is the end of an A section. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning. All right? And so you can do the same thing, picking out the bass notes for the bridge, for the B section. And I'll do that right now. I'll go back to the page 1 of my handout. Maybe actually, rather than doing it there, I will magnify it a little bit here so that you can see what we're talking about. We're going to play the roots here. All right, so again, I will just really quickly circle all my roots here. I'm going to circle the G here, the open C, my F is my root there. When I play E, my open E string is going to be my root. And when I play F, back to F for this root. My root on the A minor is going to be here on my G string. And, you know, if you're not that familiar with the ukulele notes on the fretboard, if you're accustomed to just always playing chords and you haven't learned the notes on the fretboard, this is going to be a really fun exercise for you to learn the notes in the context in which the notes belong in the song. But also, rest assured, you don't need to do this exercise that I'm talking about with the bass notes. You don't need to always play it the way I'm doing right now, where I'm fretting the chord and actually just playing the root under my fingers. You can actually just play them as single notes if you prefer. It's entirely up to you. The purpose of this exercise is not so much to learn the notes on your fretboard, although it will help you to learn the notes on your fretboard. The purpose is really to anchor the sound of the bass notes in your brain while you're singing the song, so that once you're playing different voicings, and perhaps, for example, in a lot of jazz voicings for the ukulele, because we only have 4 strings, perhaps the root will be covered, because maybe we're going to turn a C7 chord into a C9 chord. And the way we do that is to cover the root of the chord, the note C, and play the note D, which is the 9 in that chord. So for example, you may not even have a root left in your chord when you're playing it on the ukulele, but you want to be able to hear the bass in your head or sing that note in your head so that you can complete your harmonic understanding as you're playing the song in your head. Okay, so here D minor is our root there, our G7, our root's going to be here, C major 7, and C sharp is going to be there. Okay, so I'm going to just play this, and I'll let you guys complete the exercise of going through, if you wish to, in your own handout and figuring out all the roots. You can do that on your own time. I don't need to actually walk you through it because I think you understand by now how to do it for yourselves. And I'll just play through this whole tune once, just playing the roots on the bass so that you can hear me singing and playing the bass notes. And I'll just put that back to page 1 and go back to here so that you can hear and see this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song. Oh, at last, the skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover the night I looked at you. Here comes the B section. I found a dream that I can speak to, a dream that I could call my own. I found a thrill to press my cheek to, a thrill that I've never known. You smiled, and then the spell was cast. And here we are in heaven, for you are mine at last. I went a little doo-woppy there for the last bit. But that is how I would recommend any new song that you're learning. Pick out the bass lines on the recording if you can. And if you don't have a recording and you're learning it from a chart, also pick out the bass lines. Don't worry about fleshing out the whole chord, because you really want to just make sure that you have those bass notes anchored in your brain before going any further. All right. So let's talk a little bit now about some comping ideas that we can use for this tune. I mentioned some already. I mentioned plucking. You can do some strumming. So we could do, if we're going to play this song as a swing tune. I mentioned this because maybe people don't realize that this song was actually recorded by Glenn Miller in the early 1940s, and it was a hit for him as a swing tune. It was not a doo-wop tune at its origins. And so you can imagine playing this tune almost a little bit more upbeat if you wanted to, and you could, the way that the original melody was played and sung, that's the melody that I've put in your chart. I have not transcribed what Etta James recorded because that, first of all, that version is so ubiquitous, you can easily hear that and figure that tune out for yourself, okay? But I also put it in there for a reason, because you're going to see that the melody contains a few interesting altered notes, melodically interesting notes that get picked up in the Glenn Miller version and that Etta James also picked up in her version. And what that introduces is actually sort of a fleshing out of the harmony. It makes the chord richer because, and I'll come back to that when we talk about the jazz harmony. But for example, if we wanted to play this as a swing tune, something like this. At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over. And life is like a song. Something like that. That would be very standard. Like if you were playing with a jazz trio, you might comp it that way, and that would sound great. And it's what the melody I just sang is very close to the way that it was recorded by Glenn Miller. Right? It's got even phrasing. You've got this melodic idea that cascades downwards. It's a cascading melody that repeats but shifts as it moves down. And it sounds pretty, but the way I sang it was more like it sounded like a big band tune, didn't it? If we want to evoke the more of that 12/8 doo-woppy feel, remember we talked about how, we're trying to sort of evoke a little bit what you're hearing in the piano on that recording. you can do stuff like that, which is going to evoke like that without hitting you in the face and requiring a lot of like sustained arpeggiation that's going to get a little bit boring after a while because it's always going to be the same. You want to break out of that 12, you want to evoke the 12/8 feeling without being like a little metronome, otherwise you're locked in and you can't change anything up. So one way to build a little bit of dynamics into this tune in your comping is to be sparser on the first A section and play something a little bit more interesting on the second A section. So what would that sound like? Maybe I'm just going to hit my root. That's one idea. So at last, my love has come along. But that'll also get tiring after a while because you're playing the same thing, right? So you might want to combine that pick strum idea, which is sort of pick the root, pick, strum, pick, strum, pick, strum, pick, strum. And notice I'm picking roots and then strumming. In theory, especially if there's also going to be a bassist playing with you, you don't actually want to be playing those roots. If you're playing with a bass, do not play the roots. You'll irritate the bassist and they won't be too happy about it. So one way to do that would be to just pick a string consistently. So maybe just pick the G string and then you're doing, sorry, oh, I'm picking roots and I can't help myself. Somebody stop me. Okay, I'll do that again. I'm going to stick to picking on the G string, okay? Pick, strum, pick. So if there is a bassist in the band, and especially, let me just switch to my high G ukulele because this can sound really different. Picking on the G string sounds really different when you're on a high G uke. And it's probably like it's going to be more more out of the way of your bassist if you do it this way. So it's going to sound like this. I did it again. I picked the root. Oh, I can't stop myself. Sorry, I'll try again. G string. Pick, strum, pick, strum, pick, strum, pick, strum, like that. All right. So that's what that's going to sound like in our at last if we're just picking and strumming. Now we can do all sorts of alternatives to picking. We can do. So this is what I'm doing here is I'm not picking my roots. I'm just literally assigning one finger to each string like I mentioned earlier. And I'm doing just literally G, C, E, A. I'm just picking the notes as they appear on my ukulele. So fret the F, G, C, E, A, D minor. Like that. And, you know, I've been playing the A section a lot, so let's see how this sounds over the B section so you guys can get some practice on the B section. So let's go to B. We're going to start on G minor. 1, 2, 3, 4. I found a dream that I could speak to, a dream that I could call my own. Now notice what I did there. I want to pause there because we're in a situation here where the and I'm just going to get this off the screen so I can really zoom in on what I'm talking about. This idea that I just talked about with picking and arpeggiating, it does not work so well when the harmonic rhythm is this quick, right? This pattern of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then ring, ring, right? Remember, because we're echoing the 6, 8 all the time. So when we do 1, 2, 3, 4, ring, ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like that, right? So we're basically always letting that note on the A string ring out to complete that 6/8 pattern, and then we're arpeggiating on the next chord. So F, D minor. And that works really well, this idea of ringing, letting the note ring and arpeggiating the first 4 of those 8th notes in my little 6/8 block that I'm assigning for each chord. That works really well as long as the chords are going by, like as long as each chord is getting to have two quarter note beats. It doesn't work so well if I'm trying to play a quick F7 to E7 right there. So you'll notice if I try to do that, let me just play it as if my left hand doesn't know what my right hand is doing. So my right hand is just going to continue arpeggiating like we've been doing, but I'm just going to play that so you can hear what it sounds like. Sorry, let me do that again. Let me try that again. I can't even do it. My hand doesn't want to let me do it. My hand is like, no, that's not going to work, so don't do it. But basically, that's how it would work. I finally got my hand to obey me. And but you're not hearing the full quality of the E7 and the full quality of the F7 and the full quality of the E7 right there, because the arpeggiation takes too long, and by the time you reach the top string, you've already had to slide back from the F7 to the E7. So it's not going to be satisfying, and you're not going to be outlining those 2 chord changes. So what I would recommend in this case, if you're doing this kind of arpeggiated comping that we talked about, I'm going to start to the B section again. Okay, so I found a dream that I could speak to, a dream that I could call my own. So you know what I did there, I just strummed the chord, 1 quarter note each, right? I went, a dream that I could call my own. And what that does is it puts a nice emphasis, it breaks up the pattern, which is always nice. You want to kind of do something a little bit different, and it allows you to evoke the full quality of the chord. Pat is asking, can't you just skip? Hold on, let me just put that. That's a good question, Pat. I'm just going to put that on the screen so that people can see what you were asking. Pat's saying, can't you just skip the second E7? Let me just play that for you, and we'll see how it sounds. I found a dream that I could speak to, a dream that I could call my own. So the problem I perceive in that is, let me go back to my full face because I need to confess to being a jazz nerd at this point. So the reason that I wouldn't recommend doing that, although it's a good question, Pat, is that what happens when you do that is you've done E7, a dream that you're playing F7, and then suddenly you're going to A minor, could call my own. What your ear is, the reason we want to go back to E7 here, and then play A minor, is that what that is it is a it's something that our ear is very attuned to in jazz, which is to hear, the E7 and the A minor come together here. So we're doing this is like leading our ear to go from the E7 and the A minor and the D minor. We want to hear that cascade here. We want to hear right? So we want to hear sorry. It's almost like you'll hear it a little bit more when I show you the jazz reharmonization of this tune, and you'll notice that that actually becomes what's called a minor 2-5-1, and that's why our ear wants to hear da 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 da, and then this harmony then continues in the B section. I found a thrill to press my cheek to. So the short answer to your question is that F7 does not lead the ear naturally to go to the A minor, and it's going to cause some confusion, I think, to the ear. If I play just at the root, I found a dream, I found a dream, G, that I can speak to, a dream that I can call my own. That's what it would sound like if I skip the E. And if I don't skip the E, a dream that a dream that I could call my own. So to my ear, I like to hear that E7 before I get to the A minor 7. But that's a really good question. Thank you for asking it, because you're helping to sort of anticipate a little bit what we're going to get to when we talk in the next section about the jazz harmonization. Okay, so other comping ideas we'll get to when we now get to the jazz chords for this chart. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the ending, because it's a very iconic part of this tune. You'll remember the intro, and I can't play the recording into the live stream because I think I'll get dinged with a copyright strike, because I'm not allowed to play like copyrighted music into here. And the recording by Etta James is copyrighted, but of course you can Google the recording by Etta James and you'll know that there is a string da 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 da. I had to change octaves because da da da, the low note is a C, which is too low for me to sing. But basically, that is a very iconic. You hear those strings and you know immediately. In fact, all you need to hear is da 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 da. Before you even hear the rest, you just hear that sustained upper voices of the violins, and you know exactly what song you're about to hear. Right? It's so iconic. In terms of our benefiting from this and learning to listen to the tune, I recommend you go straight to the ending of the tune, because that sequence with the strings is repeated almost identically at the end of the tune, but at the beginning of the tune, when you hear it, it's just the string sections, and there is no bass and no rhythm section backing them, and they're playing it, it's conducted, and it's sort of rubato, which means it's kind of hard to find the time, and you're not going to hear those easy cues to find the harmony because the bass is absent. Whereas at the end of the recording, you're going to have the bass joining in, and the piano, and the drums, and it's going to be super easy for you to hear what the bass is doing. I recommend, I'm going to show you the transcription that I did for what the bass plays. And we're talking about the bass line at the end. But I highly recommend, even though I'm showing this to you now, I highly recommend that you do your own listening and your own transcribing of this. Don't feel you need to write down note for note what the bass is playing, but just find those notes on your ukulele, and you're going to find it super interesting, because it helps you to realize that bassists play more than just roots. First of all, you're going to start to hear all the little connecting notes that they play in their lines. And you're also going to learn, it's going to teach you a lot about how to identify chords based in the first instance on what the bass is playing. And then you then have to listen carefully. Once you've identified the root of each chord, you have to think to yourself, okay, is this a major chord? Is it a minor chord? Is it half diminished? Though that can come later, but the first instance is we want to just identify the correct roots. All right. Hi, Guy. Bonjour, Guy. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Great to see you. I'm glad that you're with us. So let me go to the ending, and we're going to just pretend that we're listening along to the recording, and I'm going to play you the chords, and I'm going to sing you the bass line. So it goes something like this. and I'm going to have to sing in a different octave, obviously, from the bass, okay? So it goes something like this. Da, 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 da. How cool is that? Right? Like, see how interesting what the bassist is doing. First of all, they're playing these little triplets, and they're using little melodic variations to get from one root to the next and to travel through the music in an interesting manner, rather than just playing like da 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 da. That is what it would sound like if I just played roots, okay? But the bass in here is doing way more than that. What I want to point out to you today is for you to realize that actually all of the notes that the bass is playing can be pretty much all of them are found under your fingers, and they're all pretty much part of the chords in the harmony. Now, what I'm doing today is I'm showing you the harmony, and then I'm showing you how those notes fit in the chord. But what I did to figure out this harmony was the opposite. I transcribed what the bass was playing. I also listened to what the violins were doing, and I kind of figured it out based on the whole of the harmony. But you can almost flesh out all these chords just based on what the bassist has played here. And why is that? That's because, okay, so the bass starts off, I'm going to play F here, okay? The bass starts off playing F. I'm going to sing an octave higher. F, F. Now notice what note they land on under the F7. And I've tabbed this out for you for ukulele, so you can find this easily on your own instrument. We're at the 3rd fret on the C string. So they went F, F, E flat. Now, what role does E flat play in an F7 chord, which is now the chord that we're hearing for the next 2 beats here? If you're thinking about it, F is the root of our chord. E flat plays the role of the dominant 7 in this chord. It's the flatted 7th note of the chord. So the bassist is telling us right away, we were at F, we had this initial chord, which was an F triad, and now by playing that E flat, he's right away told us that we have a flatted 7th in this chord. Then you could listen and figure out, okay, am I hearing this or am I hearing this? That would make it, what I just did would make it an F minor. Doesn't sound right for the song at all. So I'm hearing this, must be an F7 chord. So you can proceed by elimination that way. You're listening to what you're hearing and then listening to what works with the recording, and you're going, okay, I got my first 2 chords. It's F, it's F7. Okay? So we have F, F, E flat, and then we go back to and then literally again, what's under my fingers here? I've got the note F. I play a passing G. And then I play the note A. Again, all part of the F triad, apart from that G, which is part of the scale of F, of course. It's the 2nd degree of the scale. And if I actually added it, it would make it like an F9 chord, because I would add the major 2nd of the chord in there, right? So that's what he's done, is he's walking us up. He played E flat, and in that triplet, he's walking us from F, 1st degree of the scale, G, 2nd degree of the scale, A, 3rd degree of the scale, and then he lands on the note B flat, which is the root. Remember, the bassists tend to, but not always, tend to play roots on the strong beats of the chord. Except, of course, when we have this F7, he played the E flat, which was my flatted 7th in the chord. Okay, so, and which notes are here? I'm fretting B flat 6. Let me just cut to my hand. B flat 6 is open, 2, 1, 1. Looks like that. And I play, again, he's playing notes that are right under our fingers. He's playing on the A string, he's playing the note B flat. And he goes back to the E string to play the note F. Like that. So again, he's playing notes that are already under our fingers. And then he goes to B diminished 7, which is 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so now he's playing the note B, which is again under my pinky finger right here on the A string. And he goes B, F, B. Okay, so again, those two notes are right under my fingers. And then I'm going to let my pinky slide up because I'm playing F7. Now let me explain what that F7 over C means. If you're wondering to yourself, what does that mean? Why is there a denominator in that chord? I'm talking about, of course, the third measure on this transcription here. You see F7 and then you see a slash. Okay, so that's called a slash chord. What that is usually you don't have to worry about this as an ukulele player. You can ignore it. The slash is there to tell your bassist if there's a bass or a piano, if there's a piano in the band, or the guitarist, whoever's going to be covering the bass. The slash is there to tell them what you want the lowest note to be. And the bassist would play the note C at this point. And if it's a pianist, they would make sure that they were putting a C in the bass at the lowest pitch of that chord instead of playing an F. So the note that's in the chord that's in the quote unquote numerator, that's an F7. So we're still going to play F7. Oh, sorry. F7. But your bassist is going to be playing C. Okay. And the reason for that, the reason that they've written it this way is that it creates very pleasing movement. So the bass is going to be playing something like this. Da, 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 da. So da, 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 da. The reason that's why you have that C, the slash chord there, is because the bass is hitting that note C. And I transcribed it as a slash chord because I noticed that the bass had played a C at the start of that bar, which means that he wanted the note to be C in the bass and not F, okay? But the quality of the chord is still an F7 chord, and that's why we write it that way as a slash. Okay, so da 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 da. Da, D7, da, 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 D flat 7, da, 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 C7. All right, so that's our intro, and it's also our ending. So in terms of how I'm choosing to voice this, I'm just playing open, like the F chord that we've been playing all along. F7, F7, B flat 6, B diminished, F7, D7, D flat 7, C7. How would you work this into the ending of your song if you were playing this on the ukulele? Well, let's see how that works. So, for you are mine, as if we're ending the tune, at last. Da, ya, da, 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 da. And then we're going to end on F, for example. So you could hum the violin score if you wanted. You could vary it, or you could just hold that note for a really long time. For you are mine at last. So there's different ways you can do that, or if you're playing with somebody else and they're playing an instrument, they might want to play that riff that the violins play. I've transcribed the riff that the violins play on here. So here is the that's just the upper voicings of the violins. It's not the full shebang. Obviously there's violas, there's cellos, and I didn't transcribe all the string parts, just the upper notes that the violin play. So we've got da, and in here I've put the F6 in there. Not sure why, but you could just play it as a normal F. Da 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 da. So in this version of the transcription, you'll notice I've given you slightly different voicings for the chords because I want to try and get us playing up the neck a little bit more, because we're going to transition to talking about some jazz alterations that we can use for this song. So in this case, the first two chords are pretty much what we've seen already. F, you can play regular F or F6, 2, 2, 1, 3, F7, and then we're going to climb up the neck here. So we're going to do 3, let me cut to my hands, 3, 5, 3, 5. That's my B flat 6. And then I just need to inch these two fingers over. Now, if you're not accustomed to playing jazz voicings, you may find this a little bit more challenging, but hang in there. You don't need to master everything all at once, right? You can do it in small chunks. So this is 4, 5, 4, 5 for B flat, B diminished. And then my pinky is already kind of on the right string here. It's on the A string at the 5th fret. I'm just going to slide my pinky up to the 6th fret and bar this way. So I'm doing it a slightly unusual way. I'm barring at the 5th fret and my pinky is here. The reason I do that is it frees up my finger for the next chord, which is going to be a D7. And then my middle finger can just effortlessly come in here, lift the pinky, and I get 5, 6, 5, 5. And that's going to give me my D7 chord. And then I'm sliding back to D flat 7, back to C7. Okay, and the final F chord is only played if you're playing the ending of the tune, because otherwise that C7 is going to lead our ear back to F for the start of the whole song. Remember that C7 is the dominant 5 chord in the key of F, and so whenever you hear the 5 chord, your ear really wants to hear the next chord, which is like the 1 chord. That's just a thing. Like, our ears are so well trained. We hear that dominant chord and we're like, yeah, give me one, give me one. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad, Char. I'm glad that that the slash chord is is helpful. It's great. Yeah. So that is the only thing I would point out is, I don't know if you would have heard this because I'm singing the violin parts a whole octave lower than they are actually played, but the voicing that you might find a little bit problematic here is when you go from F7 to D7 to D flat 7. Let me sing you the violin notes so you can hear what I'm talking about. Da 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 da. B flat 6, da, B diminished, da 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 da, F7, da 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 da, and in fact it would be da. That's what the violins would be playing, da. So you might hear there's some dissonance there, right? Because I'm playing D7 at the 5th fret, so it's 5, 6, 5, 5, da. My melody note that the violins are playing is da, which is actually an E flat. But the top note of this particular voicing is a D. So we have this semitone. And it's not just a passing semitone. It lasts a dotted quarter note according to the transcription that I've put there. And I'm talking about here. Let me just zoom in here so that everybody knows what I am talking about. Excuse me. I'm just going to take this off the screen and cut to my iPad. I'm talking about this point right here. Okay? Right there. I'm playing the note D at the top here at the 5th fret. This note here. And it's creating something of a... sorry. Da, 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 da. That is, this note here is E flat, okay? And don't forget there's a flat there, so that's why this is an E flat, okay? That note is an E flat, And to my ear, it's clashing pretty strongly with the semitone that is in the D7 chord. It's okay to have dissonance, especially when if they're an octave apart. It's kind of cool. You can have clashing notes. They can rub against each other, no problem. They don't normally last a very long time when you have those passing dissonances. In this case, you've got this dotted quarter note and it's like, oh, what's going on there? That's kind of rubbing me the wrong way. So there's a way around this, and the way that I suggest to get around it is what I've proposed here. And actually, if you listen carefully to the recording, you will notice that this is actually how it is voiced. Notice what has happened here. We've turned the D7 chord into a D7 flat 9. And what is the flat 9 of D? The flat 9, the ninth note in the scale of D. Remember, if I'm counting from D, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, which is my octave, so that's the note 8, and then E, which is the ninth note, also the second note in the scale, of course, right? So the note E is my 9, and my flat 9 would be E flat. So if I make this chord a D7 flat 9, then I have incorporated that E flat into the sound of the chord, and what the violins are playing in that upper register is going to be very harmonious with what all the other instruments choose to play, because we've told the band this is not just a D7 chord, it's a D7 flat 9 chord. And that way we're grabbing that note that's in the violins and we're forcing it into the chord. And that way everybody's going to play, and there's not going to be this potential dissonance that could kind of throw your ear off. Okay, so let me just go back to that and just say that this is now that note here. Instead of being at the 5th fret, we're now playing an E flat here at the 6th fret of my D7 flat 9, and that is the note that the violins are playing. Yay! Problem solved. Isn't that delightful? So we have incorporated the sound of that flat 9 into our voicing. So we're going to change a D7. We're going to make that a D7 flat 9. All right, so how does that sound? Oh, Brian is here. Hi, Brian. Thanks so much for joining us. It's great to see you. Yay. Hi, Brian. Awesome to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. So delighted to see you. All right, so let's go back to our baseline arrangement, and we're going to proceed to this version. Whoops, sorry, not that one. This one here. This is the one that has the D7 flat 9 in it instead of the D7, and that way we've pulled in the note that the violins are playing, and we're in no danger of clashing with it. Now, unless you happen to have a violinist or an instrumentalist playing the exact riff from this recording, of course you're not going to have that note necessarily in your arrangement. So you might ask yourself, why does it matter to make that chord a D7 flat 9? If you're not going to be singing the flat 9 or nobody's going to be playing it, then it doesn't matter. You can just make that note chord a D7 and it'll still work. But it's kind of nice. What I'm trying to explain to you is how you can glean the correct harmony from a recording just by sitting down at your ukulele and figuring out like, oh, wait a minute, there's a clash there. I just heard the violins play this. I better alter that chord. The reason I want to explain this to you is that jazz alterations, they can be made just for the sake of it. So you can just say, oh, I've got a C7 chord, I'm going to make that a C13 because I like the sound of it. But occasionally and very often, the reason for choosing to alter a jazz chord is because the melody actually contains that altered note. And that's where this sort of richness of the harmony comes from. So I just wanted to explain that process to you. Okay, so let's do this now. Let's play these particular voicings that I've shown you here. So once again, if I look at that F7 over C chord, I'm playing it here and I'm choosing to do it this way. I'm choosing to use my pinky here to play that F7 over C for two reasons. One, I just came out of a B diminished chord. So I was at 4-5, 4-5. My pinky's already nicely poised to just slide up to play that F7 at the 6th fret, The pinky goes to the 6th fret. The bar comes down at the 5th fret. And this is also going to liberate, this is also really nicely positioning me to just swivel and go into D7 flat 9. D7 flat 9 is 5, 6, 5, 6. So it looks very much like that B diminished chord we just played, but it's 1 fret over. And then I'm sort of swiveling again, landing my bar in here, using my middle finger in this case to play D7, D flat 7, and then C7. So let's put that all together and play. I'm just gonna sing the violin part so that you can hear it. If you want to, while I do this, if you choose to, you could also play the bass part. We could have some of us at home singing bum 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 bum. And others of us are going to do the violin part. So let me sing the violin part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 ya da 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 da. And if we're going to end the tune, we're going to play. I'm proposing to end on an F6/9 chord, so that is 2, 2, 3, 3. The reason I like to end on that is if you listen to the violins, you'll hear them arpeggiating a chord, and you'll actually hear the note D in there, and you'll also, which is the 6 in the F6 chord, and you'll also hear a G in there, which is the 9 in the F in the scale of F, and it's this is what makes it an F6/9 chord, and it's so pretty. And then if you really want to resolve and hear like something a little bit more sounding like home that has an F in it, then you can also play that normal F. Because the F6/9 voicing that I'm showing you here, there is no F in it, because I've had to cover the F with the note G to make that an F6/9. But it's got a lovely, I find 6/9 chords have a lovely open quality to them. They sound so full of possibility. Oh boy, I sound really, I sound like so emotional right now, but I do like the sound of the F6/9 chord a lot. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I've been looking. I think we're good. I've been trying to track all the questions, but if you have any, please let me know. And right now, really quickly, let's transition from the intro and ending discussion. My purpose in showing you this was really just to transcribe a little bit from the recordings so you can see that it's kind of fantastic how much information you can get from a recording to feed into how you deconstruct and figure out the harmony of the tune for yourself. Okay. Well, let's go to our jazz reharmonization now. So next page in your handout is a reharmonization of this tune. So it's the last page, and it should look like this. And it looks pretty crowded, and sorry about that. That's just because there are a lot of chords to play in this tune. But you'll notice I've tried to get us playing in some different inversions of these chords. And gone are open. We don't have a lot of open strings in these inversions, and we don't have a lot of repeated notes. So remember, we started off playing a triad, which was the F triad for this tune: 2 open, 1 open. And I'm on my high G ukulele, and you can hear right now, of course, this voicing has 2 A's in it, and they're identical on high G and an octave apart on low G. When we introduce more notes into this chord, we can make it an F6 chord, for example, and that's going to be 2, 2, 1, 3. And that's now added the note C in there, and the note D. And the note D being my 6 of the F chord, right? And it's replaced, the C was always in there, but the C was my open C string before. I had to cover that up to make this a 6 chord. So my pinky is coming down to put that note C an octave higher, right? This F6 is now going to look identical to the D minor 7 chord voiced in this position. So this is why we were doing that exercise before where we were playing bass notes and singing the bass notes, because otherwise you're just going to hear it if you choose not to change your voicing. In this example, I've chosen to play the D minor up here at bar 5. Just to help the ear recognize that we've changed chords, that this chord has a different quality. But if you had a bassist in the band, you might not need to do that. You could choose to just sit here for 4 beats. But you would be responsible for understanding that for the first 2 beats, this chord, this voicing is functioning as an F6 chord. And for the second 2 beats, it's functioning as a D minor 7. So it's F6, D minor 7, right? My root has changed. G minor 7, C7. And so I've given you some alternative voicings here. G minor 7 is 3-5-3-5. C7 is the one that's barred at the 3rd fret, and it gives me 3-4-3-3. The reason I wanted to show you this voicing here, you probably, if you're used to playing a few bar chords, you may already be familiar with this voicing. But the reason it's nice to learn this voicing is that now we're going to go back to our original melody. And I apologize, on this chart, I could not fit the melody and the lyrics. It was just going to not fit on one page. So in terms of looking at the melody, we're actually going to have to go back to our original handout, which looked like this, okay? And in fact, I'm going to do one better. I'm going to take this off, and I'm just going to go back to our original melody here. Remember I talked about how there were some very pretty notes outside of the scale as part of this melody? So remember we talked about the Glenn Miller version, which was at last my love has come along, my love. You probably can hear that that is a note that's a little bit out. It's not in the key of F. It's not a naturally occurring note. And I'm talking about here, this note here, this A flat here. So it's kind of funky, right? So let's see, how does that fit against C7? At last, my love, my love. So C7 has the note G in it, but in fact, momentarily, while I hit that note, I'm not singing a G, I'm singing an A flat. My love. That note A flat, I can incorporate it into my chord by putting my ring finger down. So let me just show you how I'm doing that. So this is my normal C7, my love, but my melody note, I bring my ring finger down here. So this becomes 3, 4, 4, 3. Right there. That's my A flat. And that is going to make this a C7 flat 13 chord. Ooh, it sounds scary. But don't worry about what it's called. Just listen to how pretty that sounds. My love. Okay, and what it is, if you recognize that in the chord C, the note G is the perfect fifth, it's a sharp 5. I've added a sharp 5. So you can call this C7 sharp 5 if you want, or you can call it C7 flat 13. For the purposes of an ukulele, it makes no difference because there's no way I'm going to fit the 5th and the flat 13 in there. Pianists will care more about what we call it, but we're not going to worry about that right now, okay? So let me just play this tune exactly as it was written at the beginning on my jazz progression chord sheet here. But I'm going to play, instead of just that C7 that I'm showing you in the second bar here, I'm going to play that C7 with the sharp 5 so that you can hear how it sounds, okay? At last, my love has come along, my lonely days. Now, notice I can repeat the sharp 5 here if I want to, but I'm no longer singing the A flat note. So it's no longer my low. The note that I'm actually singing is the note E flat. Right now, my lonely days are over, my low. And you may think to yourself, my low. Ooh, you think to yourself, hang on. The C7 chord has an E natural in there, and she's singing an E flat. Whoa, that's funky. That's weird. And you're right. And what is that E flat? Does it mean that this is not a C7 chord? Could it be a C minor chord? Maybe the E doesn't belong in this chord at all. Let me try it with a C minor. My lonely days. Nope, doesn't work, right? That's a C minor 7. It's like, no. I need that. I need that. That third, that major third in there. I need that note E. This is a C7 chord. It's not a C minor chord. It's a C dominant 7 chord. So what is that? Why is it that my lonely day, what is that E flat? Well, think of it up here, an octave higher. Ooh. What we've just done is, because of the melody note, we've turned this normal C7 chord into a C7 sharp 9 chord. That melody note, whether you play it on your ukulele or not, is completing the chord and turning this chord into something really funky, really cool sounding. All right? So this is another example of where the harmony is pulling, like you could write, if you wanted to, you could write into your chart that you wanted that chord. Instead of playing it as a C7, you could say, I want that to be a C7 sharp 9. However, I would say don't do it, because it kind of means that you force yourself to sing the song that way every single time. And if you choose to sing a different note, now that you've forced that into your harmony, it could produce some clashes. So quite often, these richnesses in harmony are happening under our ears, but they're not always written into the chart. I just want you to be aware of that. And if you found that kind of too much information, feel free to put it in a little box in a drawer in your mind and put it away to be looked at later. Okay, let's go back to our jazz chord substitution chart right here. And we're going to talk about getting us through this reharmonization. One of the things I want to draw your attention to on this chart is instead of playing 1, 6, 2, 5, again, the numbers here that we're referring to are just the degrees of the scale. So F is the 1 chord because that's the first degree of the scale in the key that we're in. F, 1, and then D is the 6th degree of the scale in the key of F. 6, 2, G is the 2nd degree of the scale because it comes after F. 2, 5, and C is my 5th degree in the scale of F. So 1, 6, 2, 5. You'll notice at the second line of my jazz reharmonization here, I've put, let me just get that off the screen so I can show it to you close up here. I've made this an A minor 7 here. Okay, so that's our first substitution. Instead of playing the 1 chord, instead of playing F, we're playing the minor 3rd chord, which is A minor 7. Remember, we're going to count from F, G, A, 3rd degree of the scale. It happens to be a minor chord, and that's our A minor 7 chord. And already that's going to sound interestingly different from what we've heard so far. So let me play you just the first few bits so that you can hear how that sounds. At last, my love has come along. So far, so good. We're coming to that A minor 7. My lonely days are over. So 2 things have happened here. We turned this F, which was the 1, 6, 2, 5 here. We've turned it into an A minor 7. So we've replaced it with the 3rd chord. Notice that we've also, instead of keeping this as D minor 7, which is what we had up here, right? Up here, this, by the way, that should have a 7 in it. I'm sorry, that's a little typo there. That configuration with the bar, D minor 7, there should be a 7 there. So instead of having a D minor 7 chord, we've converted that D minor 7 chord into a D7 chord here. And the reason for that, again, it's a question of our ear, right? Our ear is used to hearing A minor. So again, it's enjoying this sequence of this is what's called, so we go from 3 to 6, D7 to dominant 6 chord, to 2 to 5. What that is it's a series of what we call cascading 2/5s. So basically you have an A minor 7 to D7 that goes da da la la, and then G minor 7 to C7 goes la la. So they sound very symmetric because we've got a minor 7 that is followed by a D7 dominant, and then G minor 7 followed by a dominant chord. And it's just because it's a little bit more pleasing, that sort of symmetry. You can replace the D minor 7 chord with a D7 chord if you want. These are just options, right? I'm just giving you some options. So we go, my lonely days are A minor 7, D7, G minor 7. And life is like a song, F, D7. Slide back D flat 7, C7. Now, I want to point out one thing, and that is that this song, even the original song by Etta James, even though they didn't do this substitution where they do that, the 3 minor 7 to the 6 and then 2 minor 7 to 1, they do this next part, this first ending, which is F, D7, D flat 7, C7, right? And what that is that's something that's referred to, which you probably are very familiar with. You've probably heard this many, many times, but you may not necessarily know what it was called. Here we've got 1, we've got 6, and instead of playing the G minor 7, which would have come here if this were just 1, 6, 2, 5, instead of playing G minor 7, we're playing D flat 7. And this is just called a tritone substitution. And what that is we're replacing what was the note, which was the root of this chord was a G, and we're replacing it with a note that is, that would be my perfect fifth. So if I go from C to G, perfect fifth, la, la, that's my D flat. So that interval between D flat and G is a flatted fifth. La, 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 that's the tritone. And it's called that because it has la, 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 3 whole tones to get from D flat, la, 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 3 whole tones. That's why it's called tritone, okay? So D flat to G. That substitution allows us to play a very appealing descending pattern at the end of this first ending. We go from F, D, D flat to C, instead of F, D, G, C. Instead of that, we're doing F, D, D flat, C. So often you'll often hear that, especially basses just walking down chromatically like that instead of playing a 1, 6, 2, 5, da, 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 da. So 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, flat 6, 5. Those are all variations of 1, 6, 2, 5, and it helps keep the song interesting instead of just playing the same chord sequence over and over and over and over and over again. And you'll hear people throw in the tritone substitution in many different places. It doesn't only have to come like this at the end of an A section. It so happens that that's what the arrangers of the tune did when they recorded At Last, okay? Okay, and I'm just going to zip along here because I don't want to, I'm cognizant of time and I want to make sure we don't end too much past 4 o'clock. But please, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat and I will be very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so now I want you to notice the B section here. We've got B section is I found a dream, and now we're making this a G minor 7. So it's open 2 1 1, and it's very similar to what we were playing before. We had the G minor triad, but now we're making this a minor 7 chord. And that means that we have an F in there because we've got that minor 7. That's our flatted 7th of the chord, and it sounds really pretty. G minor 7, C7, F6. And you already know these chords. You've looked at them before and you've seen them. They've just been in slightly different order, but we've seen them before. And what this is again, I'm just going to number the chords based on where they lie in the key of F. My F is the 1 chord. My G is the 2nd degree of the 1 chord. It's a minor chord, so I'm writing it in lowercase Roman numerals. That's a 2. My C is the 5 chord. So this is a major 2-5-1. We call it major because the 1 chord is a major chord. Okay, so that's a 2-5-1 in the key of F. I'm going to color it in a particular color just to keep track. I'm going to turn this. This is going to turn out a little bit messy, but that's okay. You can write this more tidily at home. Now, I want to show you another alternative here, an alternative for the second half of the B section, and that is, you'll remember originally in the B section we had this interesting thing that went E7, F7, E7, A minor. Notice here we're still landing on the chord A minor, but we're turning this into another very common progression in jazz, and this is called a minor 2-5-1. And so we're going to play a B half diminished chord, which is 4-5-5-5. And I'm just going to reconfigure my fingers here like this. Again, looking very familiar to the patterns we played before. 4-5-4-5, E7 flat 9, A minor 7. I'm playing this A minor 7. If you find that challenging, you can always play just 2 open, 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 open. No problem. 2 open, open, open. But I'm playing this A minor 7, which is 2-4-3-3. You can also, if you find it more comfortable, you can double bar it like this and just put your ring finger there. There are several options for fingering that. You can even use 4 fingers if you find that more easy to do. So we go 2-5-1, B, and again, I'm going to play the root. B, B, E, A. And now let me voice the whole chord. B, half diminished, E, I'm singing it an octave higher because the E is a bit low, but I'll sing it low. Okay, B half diminished, E7 flat 9, A minor 7. Once again, do it with me. 2, B half diminished, A7 flat 9, A minor 7. Okay, so this is, again, now I'm temporarily considering myself to be in a different key here. And I'm going to write this as if I'm in the key of A minor, just temporarily here. And because it's a minor chord, I'm going to write it as a lowercase Roman numeral. Okay, so this is a 2. This is this symbol here, the circle with a dash through it, that's a minor 7 flat 5 chord. So 2 minor 7, whoops, 2 minor 7 flat 5, or you can also write it as a phi, 2 half diminished like that, the circle with the dash through it. And this is my 5 chord. It so happens I'm playing it as a 7 flat 9. It doesn't always have to be a 7 flat 9. It can be just a plain 1. But we call it a minor 2-5-1 in the key of A minor because the 1 chord is a minor chord. And so the minor 2-5-1 always has this half diminished quality in the 2 chord. And I'm going to color that in a different color. Okay? I'm putting a different color here because we're not in F right now. We're in A minor 7. So there's lots of nice little bits of jazz harmony in these substitutions here. We haven't changed much here for the second line of the bridge. We're doing I found a thrill, D minor 7, G7, to press my cheek to C major 7, C sharp diminished 7. Nothing much has changed there. A thrill I've never known, G minor 7, C7. Okay, so again, I'm going to identify these just really quickly because I think it's useful for us to understand how this harmony works in the context of the song. This here, now I'm in the key, I'm temporarily treating this like the key of C, so I'll use yet another color. 1 chord here, this is a major 1 chord, C major 7. This is a minor 2 chord, 2, 5, 1. So this is the key of C. And up there before, I guess I can just write, I'll just write this out for, so when you're watching in replay, you'll see this was in the key of F. And that up there was in key of A minor. So you see we've got lots of different 2, 5, 1s in different keys here. It's pretty cool. I'll make this one a slightly dark, I'll make it red because it so happens we were in A minor before. A minor is the relative minor of the key of C. So we had a 2, 5, 1 here, a minor 2, 5, 1, preceding a major 2, 5, 1 here in this part of the tune. So I think I'll stop there in terms of highlighting all the 2 5s. There are some other bits of analysis we could do, but I'm not trying to do like a comprehensive analysis of the tune because I think that would take us a little bit too long. So let me just show you the final A section here because I've given you some alternative choices for voicings here just to show you there's an open F, there's an F major 7 chord that I love, which is quite easy to play and it just sounds so pretty. It's 5, 5, open, open. You smiled. And it has, I feel like it has a slightly more sentimental tone to it. And I feel like it's appropriate for this A section of the tune because this is where she's coming out of, I found a thrill to press my cheek to, a thrill I've never known, you smiled. And it's like, you smiled. Oh, it brings me back down from the clouds, right? You smiled. And you smiled. So I'm going from 5, 5, open, open, to D minor 7, 2, 2, 1, 3, G minor 7, open 2, 1, 1, and now I'm going to play this as a C13. Again, options, you don't have to play this. If you want to play C7, you totally can. C13 involves just playing C7 and putting your ring finger down at the 5th fret on the E string. And that just gives it a slightly more color and a more interesting sound, in my opinion. F6, and then the spell was cast. And now I'm going to slide my D minor 7 back 1 fret to make it D flat minor 7 into G minor 7. And the reason I like that, it just gives you a little bit of chromatic movement. So you're going C7. And now we're going to finish off here with an ending that I really love. Again, we're playing 3, 6 instead of 3, 6, 2, 5. So here we are in heaven. Again, we're going to do, instead of playing a D7 over here, remember when we did this before, when we did this before, this was 3. If this were a D7, that would be the 6. We're going to do another tritone substitution here. And so instead of playing D, we're going to go to a flat 5 up from D, the tritone up from D is A flat, and we're going to replace that D7 chord with an A flat 7 chord to play G. Then, so it's going to sound like this. And finally, at last. Whew, we made it through. We made it through our reharmonization, and I'll just play that through really quickly once now for you. With the full substitutions, I'll play through the chords so that you have something that you can play along with when you come back to this, if you want to come back to it for the replay. 1, 2, 3, at last. My love has come along. My lonely days are over. And life is like a song. Oh, at last. The skies above are blue. My lonely days are over. The night I looked at you, I found a dream that I could speak to, a dream that I could call my own. I found a thrill to press my cheek to, a thrill I never known. You smiled, oh, oh, and then the spell was cast, and here we are in heaven, for you are mine at last. All right. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this workshop. There's a lot more, obviously, that we can do with this tune. These are just a few ideas of what to do with this tune. I wanted to get you thinking about how to listen to the bass, how to listen to the arrangement, and pull some chordal ideas out from the recording. And then also a few ideas of substitutions, jazz substitutions that can work. Of course, as I mentioned before, everybody's going to play those a little bit differently. They're going to choose to use different color notes. I also wanted to mention just briefly for you that my husband Adrian and I are going to be doing a Christmas show on, I think it's December 11th. I'll just put a little poster up for that right here. So in case, I just wanted you to save the date in case you'd like to join us. It'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and we're doing it a little earlier so that our friends in the UK and in Europe can join us live if they wish to. But I'll send out more details about that. So if you haven't already joined my mailing list, please do so. Go to Ukulele for Jazz Singers to join the mailing list. Thank you for giving this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It really helps other people to find this live stream. It'll help them to find it. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, because I do plan to do more of these kinds of workshops in the future. Thank you all so much for being here. It's been an absolute delight. Muito obrigada nuestros amigos en Brésil. Et merci beaucoup à nos amis au Québec d'avoir été parmi nous aujourd'hui. Et en Belgique aussi. It's so cool to have a multilingual audience with us today. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you're going to go away and get lots of joy and ideas for comping ideas and chord substitutions for this beautiful song that Etta James turned into such a classic. So thank you very much. And I'm loving, thank you for your lovely comments. Oh, thanks so much, Nick. Thanks for watching, even though you don't play ukulele. It's never too late, Nick. It's never too late to learn. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Guy. Ah, c'est gentil. Merci beaucoup. Lily, Marlis. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't miss anyone. I know I was trying to welcome people as they joined, but if you joined while I was already teaching, I might have missed you. So please don't feel slighted. I really appreciate you joining us today. And don't forget, this video will be replayable. It should work at this very link that you joined at, but if for any reason it doesn't work, I have been recording it separately and I will re-upload it as needed. So please do join my mailing list if you want to receive the replay link, because I will send it out afterwards. So I wish you all a fantastic weekend, and I know that some people in the US have their Thanksgiving coming up, so I wish you, those of you who have your Thanksgiving in November, I wish you happy Thanksgiving and fantastic weekend to the rest of you. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Clifford. Thanks so much, you guys. It's great to spend time with you. This was my first time doing a YouTube live stream on my own. Adrian helped me a lot with the setup, but I was on my own navigating all the buttons. So thank you for your patience with me while I was navigating all my different buttons and screens and stuff. I'm really glad that it went well. I'm touching wood. I'm glad I didn't have any technological catastrophes. So that's great. Take care, everybody. I'm going to stop. I'm going to end the stream now. Bye.